They say you never truly understand what you have until it's gone. But what they don't tell you is how quickly it can all disappear. How one moment you can be standing in your living room looking at 30 years of memories, and the next, you're watching them float away in muddy water while the wind howls like a wounded animal. My name is Elaine Turner, and at 53 years old, I lost everything I owned to Hurricane Mabel. I remember the weather alerts blaring on my phone that morning. The evacuation orders had come late, too late for someone like me who lived alone on the outskirts of Galveston. My little blue house on Pelican Drive had weathered storms before. It was modest, but mine, paid off after decades of double shifts at Mercy Hospital where I worked as a nurse. I thought, we'd make it through this one too. I was wrong. The water came first, seeping under doors and through window frames like ghostly fingers. Then the wind picked up, tearing at the roof shingles I'd replaced just last summer. I huddled in my hallway, clutching my late mother's silver photo frame and my father's Bible, the only things I'd managed to grab before the windows shattered. Please, God, I whispered as the walls creaked and groaned around me. Just let me survive this. I did survive, but my home didn't. When dawn broke, I stepped over the remains of my front porch into ankle-deep water. The hurricane had ripped my house nearly in half. The bedroom where I'd slept for 30 years was simply gone. My clothes, my photos, my life, scattered across 3 counties or sunken into the murky Gulf waters. All I had left were the clothes on my back, my father's waterlogged Bible, and my purse with $57 inside. My cell phone was at 12% battery. No insurance would cover this devastation. I'd been forced to drop my policy when the premiums doubled last year after the previous storm season. The Red Cross volunteers found me sitting on what remained of my steps, staring at nothing. "Ma'am, do you have somewhere to go? Family nearby?" asked a kind-eyed young man in a bright vest. Family. The word echoed in my mind. "My son," I said, my voice cracking. "Ryan. He lives in Sugar Land." Sugar Land was about 40 miles inland, safe from the destruction that had leveled my neighborhood. Ryan had moved there 3 years ago with his girlfriend, Brittany. They had a nice house in one of those gated communities with manicured lawns and community pools. They'd invited me over exactly twice since they'd moved in. The volunteer helped me call Ryan. The conversation was brief. "Mom, are you okay?" His voice sounded distant, distracted. "No, Ryan, I'm not. The house, it's gone. Everything's gone." A pause. I heard muffled voices in the background. "Can you come get me?" I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. "I don't have anywhere else to go." Another pause. "Yeah, of course. Text me where you are. I'll come when I can." 6 hours later, Ryan's sleek black SUV pulled up to the emergency shelter they'd set up at the high school gym. I was sitting on a cot, one of hundreds lined up in rows, clutching my purse and Bible. I hadn't eaten, though. Volunteers had offered sandwiches. My stomach was too tight with anxiety. Ryan looked so much like his father. Tall, with those same hazel eyes and the cleft in his chin. He'd inherited none of my softness. At 32, he was successful, driven, always busy with his career in corporate finance. Too busy to call most weekends. Too busy to visit on most holidays. "Mom?" He nodded, not moving to hug me. His eyes darted around the shelter, taking in the devastation reflected in each survivor's face. "Thank you for coming," I said, standing up. My knees ached from sitting so long. "Let's go," he said, already turning toward the exit. The drive to Sugar Land was mostly silent. I watched the landscape transform from hurricane-ravaged ruins to untouched suburbs, feeling the surreal disconnect of disaster zones, how destruction could be so complete in one area and non-existent just miles away. "Brittany's making up the guest room," Ryan finally said as we pulled into his neighborhood. Perfectly aligned palm trees flanked the entrance. "It's just temporary, though, until you figure something out." I nodded, too exhausted to ask what that meant. What was I supposed to figure out with nothing to my name? Ryan and Brittany's house was exactly as I remembered. Beige stucco exterior, immaculately landscaped yard, interior decorated in various shades of gray and white. Sterile, perfect. Nothing like the colorful, lived-in home I'd created. Brittany stood in the doorway, her blonde hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, wearing yoga pants and a fitted tank top. At 29, she was beautiful in that calculated way, the kind of beauty that required effort and maintenance. She didn't smile when she saw me. "Ryan," she said, ignoring me completely. "Can I talk to you inside for a second?" They disappeared into the house, leaving me standing on the porch with my pathetic belongings. Through the beveled glass of their front door, I could see them arguing. Brittany's hands moved, animatedly. Ryan's shoulders slumped. 5 minutes later, the door opened again. Brittany stood there, arms crossed over her chest. "I'm sorry about your situation," she said, not sounding sorry at all. "But we actually have some friends coming to stay this weekend. It's been planned for months. The guest room isn't available." I looked at Ryan, standing behind her. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I can sleep on the couch," I offered. "We're hosting a dinner party tomorrow night," Brittany continued as if I hadn't spoken. "And frankly, we don't have space for unexpected guests right now." "Brittany?" Ryan murmured, but there was no force behind it. She turned to him, her voice dropping to a theatrical whisper that I was clearly meant to hear. "This isn't our problem, Ryan. We've talked about boundaries with your mother. We're building our lives. We can't just become a homeless shelter." I felt heat rush to my face. "I'm not asking to move in permanently. I just need a place to stay until..." "Until what?" Brittany cut in. "Until you find a new place with no money? Until you get back on your feet at your age? We don't want you here." The words hit me like physical blows. I looked at my son, the baby I'd nursed through fevers, the boy I'd worked double shifts to put through college, the man whose father had walked out when he was just 7, leaving me to raise him alone. "Ryan?" My voice broke on his name. He finally looked at me, guilt flashing across his face. But then Brittany's hand closed around his arm, her red nails digging into his sleeve. "I'm sorry, Mom. Maybe there's another shelter. Or one of your friends from work?" I stood there, speechless. The wind picked up, carrying the distant scent of rain. Another storm coming. Brittany's lips curved into something between a smile and a smirk. "We really are sorry," she said, already closing the door. "Good luck." And then, I still can't believe it when I think about it, I heard a soft laugh from behind. The closing door. Whether it was Brittany's or Ryan's, I'll never know. But that laugh, more than the hurricane, more than the loss of my home, broke something inside me. I turned away from my son's house, clutching my Bible and the ghost of my dignity. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the perfect suburban lawns. I had nowhere to go, no one to call. Except maybe I did. Found myself walking aimlessly through my son's neighborhood as darkness fell. Each house looked the same, variations on the same beige dream, bright windows revealing happy families inside, normal lives continuing while mine had washed away. The first raindrops began to fall as I reached a small park at the edge of the subdivision. There was a covered gazebo in the center, and I headed for it, my legs shaking with exhaustion and hunger. The wooden bench inside was hard but dry. This would be my bed tonight. As I sat down, I opened my father's Bible, the one thing I'd managed to save. The leather cover was warped from water damage, but the pages were mostly intact. I'd always found comfort in it during hard times. My father had been a man of deep faith, and though my own had wavered over the years, I still felt his presence in the worn pages. Something fell from between the pages. A small folded piece of paper, yellowed with age. I opened it with trembling fingers and stared at the faded ink. A phone number, written in my own youthful handwriting, followed by a name, Jonathan Reed. My heart did a strange little flip in my chest. Jonathan Reed, my first love, the boy who'd promised me the world when we were 17, before life pulled us in different directions, before I met Ryan's father and made the sensible choice my parents had pushed me toward. I hadn't thought of Jonathan in years, or at least I told myself I hadn't. The truth was, his memory had always lingered somewhere in the background of my life, a road not taken, a question never answered. We'd been inseparable. During our senior year of high school, the fisherman's daughter and the mechanic's son, both of us dreaming of escaping Galveston. Jonathan had been brilliant, full of ideas and ambitions too big for our small coastal town. He'd wanted to study architecture, to build beautiful things. I'd wanted to be a writer. Neither of us got what we wanted, at least not then. His father died suddenly, leaving the family garage in debt. My parents pushed me toward nursing, a stable career with guaranteed employment. And then Tom Turner came along, handsome and established with a steady job at the refinery. My parents approved. Jonathan didn't. Our last night together, we'd argued on the beach. He'd begged me to go with him to Austin, where he'd finally secured a scholarship. I'd chosen safety instead. "You'll regret this, Elaine," he'd said, his voice breaking. "We're meant for more than just settling." He'd been right. Tom left me when Ryan was 7, Traded me in for a younger model in Houston. I never did become a writer. And Jonathan? Well, I'd heard bits and pieces over the years. He'd left Texas, gone west, made something of himself in real estate, people said. I never looked him up. It hurt too much to know he'd found his dreams without me. And now, here was his number, preserved like a pressed flower between the pages of my father's Bible. I'd written it down the day before he left, promising to call if I changed my mind. I never did. The odds of this number still working after 35 years were non-existent. Cell phones hadn't even existed back then. This would have been his parents' landline, disconnected decades ago. Yet something made me pull out my phone. The battery was at 5% now. One call, maybe, before it died. I should call a shelter, or one of my coworkers. Someone who could actually help. Instead, my fingers dialed Jonathan's number. 1 ring, 2, 3. I was about to hang up when, "Hello?" a deep male voice answered. I nearly dropped the phone. "Hello?" the voice repeated. "Who's this?" I'm sorry," I stammered. "I must have the wrong number. I was trying to reach—" "It doesn't matter." A pause. "Who were you trying to reach?" "A Jonathan Reed. But this number is from 1989, so—" "Elaine?" The voice changed, softened with shock. "Elaine Turner?" The world seemed to tilt beneath me. "Jonathan? My God," he said. "Is it really you? How—" I couldn't form a coherent thought. "How do you still have this number?" He laughed softly. "I never changed it. When cell phones came along, I kept the same digits. It was my first business number, and then, I don't know. Superstition, maybe. Never wanted to change it." "I can't believe I reached you," I whispered. "Where are you calling from, Elaine? Are you okay? You sound—" "I'm not." "Okay," I said, and to my horror, I began to cry. Not delicate tears, but ugly, heaving sobs that had been building since I'd watched my home disappear under swirling floodwaters. I told him everything. The hurricane, my destroyed home, Ryan and Brittany turning me away, sitting alone in a park gazebo with nowhere to go. The words poured out of me like the rain now streaming down around my shelter. "Where exactly are you right now?" Jonathan asked when I finally ran out of words. His voice had changed. There was an edge to it I didn't recognize. "Some park in Sugarland, in my son's neighborhood. I don't even know the address. Can you send me your location from your phone?" "I think so, but my battery's almost dead." "Do it now, Elaine, then stay exactly where you are. I'm coming to get you. Jonathan, you don't have to—" "I'm in Houston," he cut me off. "I can be there in 30 minutes. Send me your location." With shaking hands, I managed to send him my location before my phone screen went black. And then I waited, listening to the rain drumming on the gazebo roof, wondering if I'd imagined the entire conversation. How could Jonathan Reed still have the same phone number? After all these years? How could he be in Houston, just when I needed someone? It was probably just a cruel coincidence, someone with the same name. Or maybe I'd finally cracked under the pressure. Imagine the whole thing. But exactly 28 minutes later, headlights cut through the darkness of the park. A sleek black car pulled up to the curb nearest the gazebo. It wasn't just any car, it was a limousine. The kind with a driver in front who steps out with an umbrella. And then the back door opened, and a tall figure emerged. He didn't wait for the umbrella. He jogged through the rain straight toward me, his silhouette becoming clearer as he approached. Gray hair, broad shoulders, a face that had aged but was unmistakable. The same strong jaw, the same kind eyes that had once looked at me like I was the answer to every question he'd ever asked. "Elaine," he said, standing at the edge of the gazebo, rain dripping from his expensive coat. "I found you." And just like that, 35 years melted away between us. Jonathan Reed stood before me, rain streaming from his silver hair, looking like a mirage that might dissolve if I blinked too hard. "I found you," he repeated, stepping into the gazebo's shelter. Water dripped from his tailored coat onto the wooden planks. At 53, I was acutely aware of how I must look. Exhausted, tear-stained, wearing the same clothes I'd had on since the hurricane hit. My hair was a disaster, my face bare of makeup. But Jonathan looked at me like I was still 17, still beautiful. "I can't believe it's you," I managed. He smiled then, and decades fell away. It was the same smile, a little crooked, a little mischievous. Only now it was framed by distinguished lines and a neatly trimmed beard peppered with gray. "Let's get you somewhere warm and dry," he said, extending his hand. I hesitated. "Jonathan, I'm basically homeless right now. I don't have anywhere to go. You do now, he said simply. Come on. His hand remained outstretched. I took it, feeling the solid warmth of his grip. He led me to the waiting limousine, shielding me from the rain with his body. The driver held the door, his face professionally neutral despite the strange scene. A wealthy man escorting a bedraggled woman from a park gazebo into his luxury vehicle. The interior smelled of leather and subtle cologne. As we settled in, I clutched my Bible and purse to my chest, suddenly self-conscious. I must look terrible, I said, trying to smooth my hair. Jonathan shook his head. You look like someone who survived a hurricane. That makes you the strongest person in this car. The limo pulled away from the curb, gliding silently through the rain-slicked streets. Where are we going? I asked. I have a place in River Oaks, he said. Plenty of room. You can stay as long as you need. River Oaks, one of Houston's most exclusive neighborhoods. I stared at him, piecing together the evidence. The limousine, the custom suit, the confidence that radiated from him. You did it, I said softly. Everything you talked about when we were young. You actually did it. He glanced out the window, a small smile playing at his lips. Some of it. Took a while, though. Tell me, I said. Please. As the limo carried us through the night, Jonathan told me his story. After leaving Galveston, he'd struggled for years, working construction during the day, taking architecture classes at night. He'd started small, renovating rundown properties, gradually building a portfolio. The turning point came when I renovated that old Calhoun building in Dallas. You remember? The one with the Art Deco facade? It was scheduled for demolition. I mortgaged everything I had to save it. I nodded, though I didn't remember. I hadn't followed his career, couldn't bear to. That project put me on the map. From there, things accelerated. I formed Reed Developments about 20 years ago. We specialize in historically sensitive renovations and sustainable commercial projects now. He said it casually, but I could read between the lines. Jonathan wasn't just successful, he was wealthy. The kind of wealthy that comes with magazine features and business school case studies. And you? He asked, his eyes gentle. Before the storm, I mean. I laughed softly. Nothing quite so impressive. 30 years as a nurse at Mercy. Hospital. I was good at it, but it was never my dream. You remember? You wanted to write, he said immediately. Poetry and stories. You were brilliant at it. The fact that he remembered sent a warm pulse through my chest. Life got in the way of that. After Tom left, it was all about survival. Keeping a roof over Ryan's head. Your son, Jonathan said. The one who turned you away tonight. The warmth in my chest cooled. He's complicated. Brittany has a strong influence on him. That's no excuse, Jonathan said, an edge entering his voice. No son should leave his mother without shelter after she's lost everything. I looked down at my hands. People change. Some things shouldn't change, he replied. The limo turned through an ornate gate and followed a curved driveway to a stunning contemporary home, all clean lines and warm lighting, with enormous windows overlooking meticulously landscaped grounds. This is where you live? I asked, breathless. One of my places, he said, helping me from the car. I travel between Houston, Austin, and New York mostly. Inside, the house was a perfect blend of luxury and comfort, open spaces, original artwork, and furnishings that invited rather than intimidated. A housekeeper appeared, somehow managing to make me feel welcome rather than out of place despite my disheveled appearance. Maria, this is Elaine, Jonathan said. She'll be staying with us. Could you prepare the East Suite and maybe find some clothes that might work for tonight? And some dinner? Maria nodded warmly. Of course, Mr. Reed, right away. I was led to a guest bathroom where I could freshen up. Looking in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. My face was drawn with exhaustion, my eyes haunted. I splashed water on my face and did what I could with my tangled hair. When I emerged, Jonathan was waiting with a glass of red wine. I hope you still drink red, he said, offering it to me. You used to say white wine tasted like melted popsicles. Again, the fact that he remembered such a small detail from our youth stunned me. I do, I said, accepting the glass. Thank you for all of this. I don't know how I'll ever repay you. He led me to a comfortable living area where a fire crackled in a modern stone fireplace. You don't need to repay me, Elaine. After everything you've been through, he paused. I just wish I'd known sooner. We could have reconnected under better circumstances. I took a sip of wine, letting its warmth spread through me. Would we have, though? Reconnected, I mean. Our lives went in such different directions. Jonathan looked at me thoughtfully. I've thought about you over the years, more than I probably should admit. You have? I couldn't hide my surprise. Of course. You were the one who got away. Before I could respond, Maria returned with a tray of food, a simple but elegant meal of soup, fresh bread, and fruit. The aroma made my stomach growl. I suddenly realized I hadn't eaten all day. We can talk more after you've eaten, Jonathan said. You need rest. I ate gratefully, aware of Jonathan watching me with a mixture of concern and something else, something that made my pulse quicken, despite my exhaustion. When I finished, Maria appeared again to show me to my room. The East Suite was larger than my entire house had been, a spacious bedroom with an adjoining sitting room and a bathroom bigger than my former kitchen. On the bed lay silk pajamas and a plush robe. In the bathroom, an array of toiletries and necessities had been thoughtfully arranged. There's an intercom if you need anything, Maria explained. Breakfast is whenever you wake up. Mr. Reed said not to disturb you in the morning. After she left, I stood in the middle of this luxurious space, overwhelmed by the contrast between my morning and my night. I'd woken up to total loss, been rejected by my only son, and ended up in the gazebo of a suburban park with nothing but a Bible and $57. Now, I was standing in a mansion, wearing borrowed clothes, having been rescued by my high school sweetheart, who'd apparently become a millionaire. Life had never felt more surreal. I showered, letting hot water sluice away the grime and shock of the day. As I slipped between the softest sheets I'd ever felt, exhaustion crashed over me. My last conscious thought was that I still didn't know if Jonathan was married, if this rescue came with complications I wasn't yet aware of. But I was too tired to worry about it. For now, I was safe. For now, I had been found. I woke disoriented, sunshine streaming through unfamiliar windows. For a moment, I thought I was still in my little blue house on Pelican Drive. Then reality crashed back. The hurricane, Ryan's rejection, and finally, improbably, Jonathan. The bedside clock read 10:17 a.m. I couldn't remember the last time I'd slept past 7. A soft knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. Come in, I called, pulling the plush comforter up to my chin. Maria entered with a tray. Good morning, Ms. Turner. Mr. Reed thought you might like breakfast in your room today. She placed the tray on a small table by the window. Coffee, fresh fruit, and pastries that looked like they belonged in a French patisserie window. Mr. Reed had to step out for a business meeting, but he'll return this afternoon, she said. He asked me to show you around and help you with anything you need. There's a boutique that delivers, if you'd like some clothes. I felt a flush of embarrassment. I don't have any money for new clothes, Maria. I lost everything in, the hurricane. Her warm brown eyes softened. Mr. Reed has taken care of it. He was very clear. Whatever you need, it's already arranged. After she left, I sipped the rich coffee, trying to process this new reality. Jonathan was being incredibly generous, but I couldn't help feeling uncomfortable. I'd spent my entire adult life being self-sufficient, never accepting handouts. Now I had no choice. After breakfast, I explored the suite. The walk-in closet was bigger than my former bedroom. The bathroom had a rainfall shower and a soaking tub that looked like it belonged in a spa. Everything spoke of understated luxury, expensive without being ostentatious. Maria returned with a tablet showing a boutique's website. Mr. Reed suggested you might select a few things for delivery today, just the, essentials to start. Reluctantly, I chose the most practical items I could find. Jeans, shirts, simple dresses. Nothing extravagant, though even these basics cost more than I would typically spend on clothes in 6 months. And some things for going out? Maria prompted gently. Perhaps for dinner? Going out? I echoed. Mr. Reed mentioned taking you to dinner tonight to celebrate your, reunion. Celebration seemed premature given the circumstances, but I added a simple black dress to the order. After dressing in the clothes I'd worn the day before, now freshly laundered, Maria gave me a tour of the house. It was even more impressive in daylight. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked manicured gardens. The art on the walls was original. I recognized works by several prominent Texas artists. Has Mr. Reed lived here long? I asked as we passed through a sun-filled atrium. About 5 years, Maria replied, though he's not here as often as he'd like. Business takes him away frequently. I wanted to ask if there was a Mrs. Reed, but couldn't bring myself to voice the question. Instead, I followed Maria to Jonathan's study, a warm space with bookshelves reaching to the ceiling, and a massive desk overlooking the back gardens. He said you might like to see this room particularly, Maria said with a smile. Mr. Reed is an avid reader. I scanned the shelves, impressed by the collection. Classics, contemporary literature, architecture, philosophy. Then something caught my eye. A small section of poetry anthologies. I stepped closer, drawn to a familiar spine. Texas Voices, I whispered, pulling the slim volume from the shelf. You know it? Maria asked. My fingers trembled as I opened the book to the table of contents. There it was. Coastal Lines, by Elaine Turner, page 37. I wrote this, I said, stunned. In college. It was published in this anthology, but I never even bought a copy? Maria smiled. Mr. Reed has had that book a very long time. It's one of his favorites. I turned to page 37, seeing my youthful words staring back at me. A poem about Galveston, about the pull of the tides and the whispers of possibility on the horizon. I'd written it during my first year of nursing school, when I still believed I might someday be a real writer. Jonathan had kept this, all these years. The boutique delivery arrived shortly after lunch. Several bags, of clothing in exactly my size. I changed into jeans and a soft blue sweater that probably cost more than my weekly salary at the hospital. The fit was perfect, making me wonder if Maria had somehow communicated my measurements. In the early afternoon, I found myself drawn to Jonathan's study again. The poetry anthology had shaken something loose in me, memories of who I'd been before life narrowed. My path. I was examining a collection of architectural photographs when I heard the front door open, followed by the sound of Jonathan's voice. My pulse quickened embarrassingly. Elaine, he called. I stepped out of the study. In here. He smiled when he saw me, his eyes taking in the new clothes. You look rested and beautiful. Thank you for everything, I said, gesturing to the outfit. It's too much, Jonathan. It's nothing, he said, waving away my concern. Did Maria show you around? She did. Your home is incredible. I'm glad you like it. He loosened his tie. I found something today I thought you might want to see. From his briefcase, he pulled out a newspaper, the Galveston Daily News. The front page showed aerial photos of the hurricane devastation. My neighborhood was clearly visible, a wasteland of broken homes and debris. I'm sorry, he said, seeing my expression. Maybe I shouldn't have. No, it's okay, I interrupted, taking the paper. I need to see it. I scanned the article, learning what I already knew in my heart. My neighborhood was one of the hardest hit. Recovery would take months, if not years. I've made some calls, Jonathan said carefully, about assistance programs, insurance appeals. There might be options. I nodded, still staring at the destruction. Thank you, but I think my house is beyond saving. Then we'll figure out what's next, he said simply. I looked up at him, struck by the we in his statement. Jonathan, I can't expect you to have dinner with me tonight, he interrupted. We'll talk about everything then. No pressure. No decisions required yet. All right, I agreed. He smiled. Good. I'll pick you up at 7. I laughed despite myself. You'll pick me up? I'm already in your house. His eyes crinkled at the corners. Humor me. It's been 35 years since I got to take Elaine Turner on a proper date. I'm not missing the opportunity. After he left to take a conference call, I returned to the eyes. Guest suite. My mind swirling with questions. The way Jonathan looked at me, spoke to me, it suggested feelings beyond mere charity or nostalgia. But so much time had passed. We were different people now, and I still didn't know if there was someone else in his life. At 7 p.m. sharp, a knock came at my door. I opened it to find Jonathan in a tailored charcoal suit, looking like he'd stepped from the pages of a luxury magazine. In my simple black dress and borrowed pearl earrings found in the guest suite's dresser, I felt hopelessly outmatched. But the way his breath caught when he saw me made me reconsider. You're stunning, he said. For the first time since the hurricane, I smiled genuinely. You clean up pretty well yourself, he offered his arm. Shall we? As we walked down the grand staircase. I couldn't help wondering what the night would reveal. About Jonathan, about myself, and about the strange twist of fate that had brought us back into each other's lives after 35 years apart. Jonathan took me to Etoile, one of Houston's most exclusive restaurants. The maitre d' greeted him by name and led us to a secluded table overlooking the garden. Crystal glasses caught the soft light, and fresh flowers scented the air. I come here for business dinners sometimes, Jonathan explained as we settled in. The chef trained in Paris. I smoothed my borrowed dress, suddenly conscious of the gulf between our worlds. I'm more familiar with diners where they know your coffee order by heart. He smiled. Those have their own charm. Remember Sal's by the pier? With the blueberry pancakes that were never actually blue? I laughed. I can't believe you remember that. I remember everything about us, Elaine. His voice softened. Every detail. The waiter approached with champagne, already ordered, already poured. To second chances, Jonathan said, raising his glass. I hesitated. Is that what this is? His eyes held mine. It could be, if you wanted it to. We sipped champagne as Jonathan steered the conversation to safer territory. Memories of Galveston, mutual acquaintances, books we'd read. He didn't ask about my marriage, and I didn't ask why he'd never married. Those questions loomed large in the space between us. Over exquisite food I could barely taste through my nerves, Jonathan finally broached the subject of my future. I've been thinking about your situation, he said carefully. I want to help Elaine, not just temporarily. You've already done more than enough, I protested. He shook his head. Let me finish. I own several properties, residential buildings mostly. There's a complex in West University Place with a vacant 2-bedroom. It's yours if you want it. I set down my fork. Jonathan, I can't accept that. You wouldn't be. You could manage the building, handle tenant concerns, oversee maintenance. It would come with a salary. The apartment would be part of your compensation. I stared at him, searching for the catch. I don't know anything about property management. You ran a hospital ward for decades. You're organized, responsible, and good with people. The rest you can learn. Why would you do this for me? I asked. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine. Because 35 years ago, I left without fighting for what mattered. I've regretted it every day since. My heart pounded as our fingers intertwined. What are you saying, Jonathan? I'm saying I never stopped thinking about you. About us. What might have been. We were kids, I whispered. Yes, and now we're not. Now we know what matters. The rest of dinner passed in a blur of emotion and confession. Jonathan told me how he'd tracked my life from afar, through mutual friends, social media, even driving by the hospital where I worked when business brought him to Galveston. That sounds a bit like stalking, I teased, though I was deeply moved. He laughed. Maybe a little, but I never interfered. You had your life, your family. I respected that boundary. And now? I asked. Now fate has thrown us together again. I'd like to see where it leads, if you would. By the time we returned to his home, something had shifted between us, a tentative bridge across the decades that separated us. In the foyer, he kissed my hand with old-fashioned courtesy. Think about my offer, he said. No pressure. You have a home here, as long as you need it. That night, I slept soundly for the first time since the hurricane. Morning brought clarity and resolve. I would accept Jonathan's offer of the apartment and job, but insist on a proper contract and fair terms. I would not be a charity case, even for him. But first, I needed to tie up loose ends. I needed to see Ryan. Jonathan lent me his car and driver to return to Sugar Land. Are you sure about this? He asked as I prepared to leave. After how they treated you. He's still my son, I said simply. I need to talk to him, one more time. The drive to Ryan's house felt different this time. No longer a desperate pilgrimage, but a necessary closure. I had Jonathan now, and perhaps a future I never expected. But I couldn't move forward without attempting to heal this wound. The driver waited as I approached Ryan's front door. I rang the bell, straightening my new clothes and lifting my chin. When Brittany answered, her eyes widened with recognition, then narrowed. What are you doing here? She asked, blocking the doorway. I need to speak with my son, I said calmly. He's not available, she snapped. We're getting ready for our dinner party. From inside, I heard Ryan's voice. Who is it, babe? Your mother, Brittany called back, her tone making my title sound like an insult. She's just leaving. Ryan appeared behind her, his expression guarded. Mom? What are you doing here? Where did you go the other night? A friend took me in, I said, meeting his eyes. I came to tell you that I'm okay. I found a place to stay and a new job. That's good, he said awkwardly. Look, about the other night, Brittany cut him off. We were just setting boundaries. It wasn't personal. It felt very personal, I replied, looking directly at her. Especially the laughing as you closed the door. Ryan had the decency to flush with shame. I didn't laugh, Mom. I wouldn't. I studied my son's face, seeing the little boy who once cried when his kite broke. The The teenager who'd worked summers at the marina to buy his first car. The man who'd slowly drifted away under Brittany's influence. "I believe you," I said softly. "But you didn't stop it either." Brittany rolled her eyes. "Is there a point to this visit? We have guests arriving in an hour." As if on cue, a sleek black limousine pulled up to the curb. I hadn't called for the car, yet Jonathan's driver was supposed to wait. But the door opened, and Jonathan himself stepped out. He wore a custom suit that probably cost more than Ryan's monthly salary. His silver hair caught the sunlight as he approached with the confident stride of a man accustomed to commanding attention. Ryan and Brittany stared, momentarily speechless. "Elaine," Jonathan called. "Everything okay here?" "Jonathan," I said, surprised. "I thought you had meetings all day." He reached my side, placing a protective hand at the small of my back. "They ended early. Thought I'd come check on you." Brittany's eyes darted between us, her expression calculating as she noted Jonathan's obvious wealth. Ryan just looked confused. "Mom?" he questioned. "Who is this?" "Jonathan Reed," Jonathan answered before I could, extending his hand. "An old friend of your mother's." Ryan shook his hand automatically. "Reed? Like Reed Developments?" Jonathan nodded. "That's right." Recognition dawned on Brittany's face. I could almost see the dollar signs in her eyes as she realized who was standing on her doorstep. Reed Developments was a major player in Texas real estate. Even I knew that now. "Mr. Reed," she purred, her entire demeanor transforming. "Please, won't you come in? We're hosting a little gathering, but you'd both be welcome to join us." The same woman who'd sneered, "We don't want you here," was now all smiles and hospitality. The hypocrisy made my stomach turn. Jonathan's hand tightened slightly at my waist. "Thank you, but we have other plans tonight." His tone was polite but cool. "I just came to make sure Elaine was all right." Ryan frowned. "Mom, what's going on? How do you know Mr. Reed?" "We grew up together in Galveston," I explained. "Jonathan and I were close before I met your father." "Very close," Jonathan added, his eyes never leaving Ryan's. "Your mother means a great deal to me." Behind Ryan, I could see other couples arriving for their dinner party. They paused at the sight of the limousine, whispering among themselves. "So, after we turned you away, you, what, called up your millionaire ex-boyfriend?" Ryan's voice held an edge of accusation. "Actually," I said, "I found his number in my father's Bible. The only thing I managed to save from the hurricane? I had nowhere else to turn." "And I'm grateful she called," Jonathan said. His voice hardened. Slightly. "I was disturbed to hear how she was treated when she came to you for help." Brittany stepped forward, clearly sensing an opportunity slipping away. "There was a misunderstanding. We'd love to make it up to you both. Please, join us for dinner." Jonathan looked down at me, his expression softening. "Elaine, what would you like to do?" I looked at my son, the boy I'd raised alone, sacrificed everything for. And I looked at the woman beside him, who had deemed me unworthy of basic kindness in my darkest hour. "No, thank you," I said quietly. "I just came to tell you I'm okay, Ryan. You don't need to worry about me anymore." "She stays here," Jonathan said suddenly, the 3 words falling like stones into still water. Ryan blinked. "What?" "She stays here," Jonathan repeated, his voice carrying enough authority to silence the whispers of arriving guests. "Not with you. With me, where she's respected, where she belongs." The simplicity of his declaration, and the power behind it, left everyone speechless. Brittany's carefully crafted smile froze. Ryan stared at the man who had just claimed his mother with 3 unapologetic words. "We should go," I said softly, feeling the weight of eyes on us. Jonathan nodded, guiding me back toward the waiting limousine. As we walked away, I heard Brittany hissing urgently at Ryan. "Do something. That's Jonathan Reed. Do you have any idea how much he's worth?" We didn't look back. In the sanctuary of the limousine, I exhaled a breath I felt I'd been holding for years. "I'm sorry if I overstepped," Jonathan said as we pulled away from Ryan's house. "I saw how she was looking at you and something just snapped." "You didn't overstep," I assured him, though "she stays here" was a bit dramatic. He smiled ruefully. "I may have been channeling my inner film hero, but I meant it, Elaine. You deserve better than what they offered you." I watched the manicured lawns of Sugarland slide by, each perfect house, sheltering stories I would never know. It's strange. 2 days ago, I would have given anything to have Ryan welcome me into his home. Now, Jonathan prompted. "Now I realize it wouldn't have healed what's broken between us. He would have taken me in out of obligation, not love, not respect. Jonathan reached for my hand. People reveal themselves in crises. Sometimes the revelations are painful. And sometimes, I said, squeezing his fingers, they're unexpected gifts. We rode in comfortable silence until I asked, "Why did you really come today?" Jonathan looked slightly embarrassed. I was worried and curious, and maybe a little possessive, if I'm being honest. "I've just found you again. I didn't want to lose you to family obligations." His candor touched me. At our age, such naked honesty was rare and precious. Back at his home, we settled on the terrace with glasses of iced tea. The afternoon sun bathed the garden in golden light, and for the first time since the hurricane, I felt truly at peace. "I've been thinking about your job offer," I said. "I'd like to accept, but on one condition." "Name it," Jonathan replied. "I want a proper contract, market rate salary, no special treatment." He nodded, respecting my need for independence. "I'll have my HR department draw up the paperwork tomorrow." "Thank you." I paused, gathering courage. "There's something else I need to ask." "Anything. Is there someone in your life? A partner? A wife? Because these past 2 days have felt like something more than friendship, and I need to know if I'm imagining it." Jonathan set down his glass. "There's no one, Elaine. There have been relationships over the years, but nothing that lasted. Nothing that compared to what I felt for you. That was a lifetime ago," I said softly. "We were different people." "Were we?" He moved closer. "Or were those younger versions the truest versions of ourselves, before compromise and practicality reshaped us?" I considered his question. "Maybe a bit of both. I'm not the dreamy girl you knew, Jonathan. Life toughened me, made me practical. And I'm not the idealistic boy with big plans and empty pockets. But the core, the essence of who we are, I think that remains." His hand found mine again, our fingers intertwining with familiar ease. "I'd like to find out," I whispered, "who we are now, together." His smile lit, something within me that had been dormant for decades. "I'd like that too." Later that evening, Maria informed us that Ryan had called 3 times while we were on the terrace. "He sounded quite insistent, Miss Turner." I sighed. I should call him back. In Jonathan's study, I used the landline to return Ryan's call. He answered on the first ring. "Mom, are you okay?" "I'm fine, Ryan," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Look, I need to explain about the other night," he began. "Brittany was stressed about the dinner party, and we weren't prepared for guests, and—" "I wasn't a guest, Ryan," I interrupted. "I was your mother who had lost everything." He fell silent. "Do you know what would have happened if Jonathan hadn't answered my call?" I continued. "I would have slept in that gazebo during a rainstorm, at 53 years old, after working double shifts for decades to put you through college." "I'm sorry," he said finally. "I should have stood up to Brittany." "Yes, you should have," I agreed. "But this isn't just about her influence. This is about the choices you've made about what kind of man you want to be." Another silence stretched between us. "So, you and Mr. Reed," he finally said. "How long has that been going on?" The deflection irritated me. "It hasn't been going on. We reconnected by chance 2 days ago, but he showed me more kindness in 2 minutes than you did in 2 years." "That's not fair, Mom." "No, it wasn't fair. None of this has been fair." I softened my tone. "Ryan, I didn't call to berate you. I called because despite everything, you're my son and I love you. But I need time and space. Because of him? Because he's rich and I'm not?" The petulance in his voice reminded me of his teenage years. "No, Ryan, because I'm learning to value myself the way Jonathan values me, the way a mother deserves to be valued." After we hung up, I returned to the terrace where Jonathan waited. The setting sun cast long shadows across the garden. "Everything okay?" he asked. "It will be," I replied. "Eventually." That night, Jonathan took me to the theater, a production of Our Town that left me with tears streaming down my face. The play's message about appreciating life's simple moments while they're happening resonated deeply after my recent losses. In the darkened theater, Jonathan's hand found mine. We sat like that, connected, present. 2 people granted an unexpected second act. Later, as he walked me to my suite, he paused at my door. "Elaine?" "Yes?" "Would it be terribly old-fashioned if I said I'd like to court you properly? Take our time?" I laughed softly. "Court me? What century is this?" His eyes crinkled. "The century where I don't want to rush this. where I want to savor every moment of discovering you. Again. I reached up, touching his cheek gently. Not old-fashioned. Just right. He kissed me then. A tender, questioning kiss that held both memory and promise. When we parted, his eyes held mine. Good night, Elaine. Good night, Jonathan. I closed the door and leaned against it, my fingertips touching my lips, feeling like a teenager again, but wiser now, more certain of what truly mattered. 4 months passed like the turning of seasons, gradual yet transformative. By early January, my life had taken shape around new rhythms and unexpected joys. The West University Place apartment complex became my domain. I learned the business quickly, discovering that managing a building wasn't so different from managing a hospital ward. Both required attention to detail, calm in crises, and genuine concern for people's well-being. My 2-bedroom apartment felt like home now. I'd furnished it slowly, carefully selecting each piece rather than rushing to fill empty spaces. Some items came from estate sales Jonathan and I visited on weekend mornings. Others were gifts, a handcrafted dining table from a grateful tenant whose leaky faucet I'd fixed at midnight, a quilt from Maria who had become a friend rather than just Jonathan's housekeeper. Nothing was salvaged from my old life except my father's Bible, now restored by a book conservator Jonathan knew. The hurricane had taken everything else, but in that emptiness, I found freedom to redefine myself. On a crisp Saturday morning, I stood on my small balcony with a cup of coffee, watching the neighborhood come to life. Jonathan would arrive soon. Our standing weekend breakfast date had become a cherished ritual. My phone rang. Ryan. Our relationship remained fragile, a delicate construction of tentative conversations and careful boundaries. After our confrontation at his house, he'd made several attempts at reconciliation, first motivated by Brittany's transparent interest in Jonathan's connections, later from what seemed like genuine remorse. "Morning, Mom," he said when I answered. "Good morning," I replied, sipping my coffee. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, He paused. "I wanted to let you know that Brittany and I broke up." I set down my cup. "I'm sorry to hear that." "Are you?" The question wasn't accusatory, just honest. "I'm sorry if you're hurting," I clarified. "But I can't say I'm sorry about the breakup itself." He laughed without humor. "Yeah, well, you were right about her. After that day with Mr. Reed, Jonathan, she couldn't stop talking about him, about his money, about how I should repair the relationship with you to maintain connections. It was like a mask slipped, and suddenly I could see what had always been there. People reveal themselves in crises," I said, echoing Jonathan's words from months ago. "That's what finally did it," Ryan continued. "Last night, she found out one of her friends got invited to some charity gala where Jonathan's company is a sponsor. She started planning how to get us invited too. Called you my golden ticket. That's when I ended it." I absorbed this information silently, watching a jogger pass below my balcony. "I've been thinking a lot," Ryan said into my silence, "about what kind of man I want to be." My own words returned to me. "And? Not the kind who lets someone talk about his mother that way. Not the kind who forgets what matters." His voice cracked slightly. "I'm sorry, Mom, for everything, for that night after the hurricane, for all the times I've put Brittany first, for not being there when you needed me." Tears pricked my eyes. "Thank you for saying that. I want to make it up to you, if you'll let me." I thought about all the years I'd spent trying to be everything for Ryan: mother, father, friend, provider, the exhaustion of always putting his needs before my own, the hurt of having that sacrifice thrown back in my face. But I also remembered the little boy who'd crawled into my lap when thunderstorms frightened him, the teenager who'd defended me when Tom showed up drunk after years of absence, the complex, flawed man who was my only child. "We can start fresh," I said finally, "not by forgetting what happened, but by building something better." "I'd like that," he said, his relief palpable. "Maybe, could I stop by sometime? See your new place?" "I'd like that too," I replied. "But Ryan?" "Yeah. Jonathan is part of my life now, an important part. I need you to respect that." A brief pause. "I understand, and I want to get to know him. The real him, not the walking bank account Brittany saw." After we hung up, I remained on the balcony, processing the conversation. So much had changed in 4 months. I'd lost everything material but gained something more valuable: clarity about what truly mattered and who truly cared. The sound of Jonathan's car pulling into the complex parking lot brought me back to the present. I watched him emerge, silver hair catching the winter sunlight, moving with the easy confidence that had first attracted me when we were teenagers. He looked up, spotted me on the balcony, and smiled. My heart responded as it always did, with a flutter that felt both adolescent and ageless. "Good morning, beautiful," he called. "Ready for breakfast?" "Come up first," I replied. "I have news." In my kitchen, I recounted Ryan's call as Jonathan listened attentively. He'd been patient with the complexities of my relationship with my son, never pushing for reconciliation, but supporting whatever boundaries I needed to establish. "That's a positive step," he said when I finished. "If that's what you want." "I think it is," I said. "He's trying. That matters." Jonathan reached across the counter to take my hand. "You're remarkable, you know that? After everything he put you through, you're still open to healing." I squeezed his fingers. "I learned something from the hurricane. Some things wash away forever. Others can be rebuilt. Different, but still valuable." He lifted my hand to his lips. "Speaking of rebuilding, I have a proposition for you." My eyebrow arched. "A proposition? At my age? How scandalous." He laughed. "Not that kind, though I'm not ruling it out for later." His expression turned more serious. "I've been thinking about Galveston." "What about it?" "Your neighborhood, most of it's still unrecovered. The insurance companies are dragging their feet. People can't afford to rebuild." I nodded. This wasn't news. I'd followed the recovery efforts closely, heart aching for my former neighbors. "Reed Developments could help," Jonathan continued. "Create affordable housing, help people return. But I'd need someone who knows the community, someone trusted." I stared at him. "You want to rebuild my neighborhood?" "I want to. Rebuild it better. Storm-resistant housing, elevated structures, sustainable design. A model for coastal resilience." His eyes lit with the same passion I remembered from our youth. "And I want you to lead the community engagement side, if you're interested." "Me?" "You know those people, Elaine. Their needs, their concerns. You could be their advocate. Make sure we're doing right by them." I considered his proposal, feeling a familiar spark ignite within me. This wasn't charity. It was purpose. A chance to help rebuild not just structures, but a community. "I'd need to keep managing this complex too," I said. "I like it here." "Of course. This would be a special project. Part-time." I smiled slowly. "Then, yes, I'm in." His answering smile was brilliant. "Perfect. Now, about that other proposition?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. My breath caught. "Jonathan, this isn't what you think," he said quickly, opening the box. Inside lay a key on a silver keychain shaped like a lighthouse. "It's a key to my house. All this courting back and forth is getting exhausting at our age." Relief and disappointment mingled strangely in my chest. "Are you asking me to move in with you?" "I'm asking you to consider it. No pressure, no timeline." He placed the box on the counter between us. "Just know that my home is yours whenever you're ready." I picked up the key, feeling its weight in my palm. This is a big step. We've been taking it slow for 4 months, and 35 years before that. His eyes held mine. "I love you, Elaine." I never stopped. Those 3 words, different from the ones he'd spoken at Ryan's house, but equally powerful, settled into my heart like they belonged there. Maybe they always had. "I love you too," I replied. "But I think I need to hold on to this apartment for now. I need my own space, my own achievement." He nodded, understanding without offense. "The key is yours either way. Use it when you want. Over breakfast." At our favorite cafe, surrounded by weekend crowds and the scent of fresh pastries, we planned the Galveston project. Jonathan's vision combined with my knowledge of the community sparked ideas neither of us would have conceived alone. By the time we finished our second coffee, we had the framework for something truly special. As we walked back to my apartment, his hand warm in mine despite the January chill, I realized something profound. The hurricane that had destroyed my life had also swept away the barriers I'd built around my heart. In losing everything, I'd gained the courage to begin again. "What are you thinking?" Jonathan asked, noticing my contemplative expression. I smiled up at him. "I'm thinking that sometimes it takes a storm to clear the path forward." 1 year after Hurricane Mabel, I stood on the newly constructed community center steps in my old Galveston neighborhood, surveying what had once been devastation and was now renewal. The Pelican Drive restoration project had transformed the area. Where my little blue house had once stood, there were now clusters of elevated homes built to withstand future storms. Solar panels glinted on rooftops. Community. Gardens flourished in spaces designed to absorb floodwaters. Most importantly, people had returned. My former neighbors, their children, their pets. Life had flowed back, resilient as the tides. Ready for your speech? Jonathan appeared beside me, handsome in a suit despite the coastal humidity. As ready as I'll ever be, I replied, smoothing the skirt of my new dress, pale blue, like the Gulf on a clear day. Today marked the official opening of the community center, the heart of the rebuilt neighborhood. Inside, residents gathered for the ceremony. Media representatives set up cameras to document what many were calling a model for disaster recovery. What no one knew was that the day held another significance for me. The past year had been extraordinary. The Galveston project had evolved from Jonathan's initial concept into something more collaborative, more innovative. I'd discovered a talent for community organization, for translating between corporate interests and neighborhood needs. I'd found my voice in ways I never had before. My relationship with Ryan had healed too. Slowly, with setbacks and breakthroughs, he'd joined the project as a financial advisor, using his corporate experience to help secure grants and manage budgets. Working together had rebuilt our bond stronger than before. And Jonathan had been my rock, my partner, my love. Our relationship had deepened with each passing month. I'd gradually moved more of my belongings to his River Oaks home, though I'd kept my apartment too. That independence remained important to me. "They're ready for you," said Maria, who'd become the project's unofficial social coordinator alongside her duties for Jonathan. She squeezed my hand encouragingly. Inside, I made my way to the podium. Familiar faces looked back at me. Mrs. Garrett from 3 houses down, who'd taught elementary school for 40 years. The Rodriguez family, whose quinceañera celebrations had always included the whole block. Dr. Phillips, who'd retired from surgery but still dispensed advice to anyone who asked. And in the front row, Ryan and Jonathan sat side by side, the 2 most important men in my life now united in support. "A year ago," I began, "I stood in this exact spot and saw nothing but destruction. My home was gone, my possessions scattered. Like many of you, I thought everything was lost." I paused, remembering that desperate day. What I didn't realize then was that a community isn't made of buildings or things. It's made of connections, relationships, the invisible bonds that tie us to each other. As I spoke, I watched heads nod in recognition. These people understood loss and resilience in their bones. The hurricane took our houses, but it couldn't take what truly matters. And now, thanks to the vision of Reed Developments and the strength of each person here, we haven't just rebuilt. We've created something better, something that will last. I highlighted the features that made the new development special, the structural innovations, the environmental considerations, the spaces designed for community gathering. Most importantly, I concluded, we've proven that storms may destroy, but they also clear the way for new beginnings. They remind us to value what truly matters, each other. Applause filled the room as I stepped away from the podium. Jonathan took my place, outlining Reed Development's commitment to maintaining the project and expanding the model to other vulnerable coastal areas. "None of this would have been possible without Elaine Turner," he said, his voice warm with pride. "Her insight, her connection to this community, her tireless advocacy made this project what it is. She is the heart of this endeavor, just as she has become the heart of my life." He turned toward me, and something in his expression made my pulse quicken, which is why, if she'll permit me a moment of personal indulgence in this professional setting, to my shock, Jonathan Reed, successful Hugh, businessman, respected developer, and the most dignified man I knew, lowered himself to one knee in front of the entire assembly. A collective gasp rippled through the room. "Elaine Turner," he said, producing a small velvet box, different from the one that had held the key. 36 years ago, I left Galveston without fighting for what mattered most. I've been given a second chance I never thought possible. I won't make the same mistake twice. He opened the box, revealing a simple but elegant ring with a pearl surrounded by tiny diamonds, like the moon encircled by stars. "Will you marry me?" Time seemed to suspend. In that frozen moment, I saw the trajectory of my life, from the girl who'd chosen security over dreams, to the woman who'd lost everything and found herself in the aftermath. "Yes," I said, my voice strong and clear. "Yes, I will." Jonathan slipped the ring onto my finger and rose to kiss me, heedless of the crowd, the cameras, the world beyond us. Applause erupted again, louder this time, punctuated by cheers and a few happy tears. When we finally parted, Ryan was the first to embrace us both. "Congratulations," he said, genuine happiness brightening his face. I couldn't imagine a better man for my mom. The reception that followed was joyous, a true community celebration. As evening approached, Jonathan and I slipped away to the shoreline, wanting a private moment amidst the day's publicity. We walked barefoot along the beach where we'd once walked as teenagers, the warm Gulf waters lapping at our ankles. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Full circle," I said, gazing out at the horizon. "Back where we began." Jonathan squeezed my hand. "Not quite. We're not the same people we were then." "No," I agreed. "We're better. I was thinking about what you said in your speech, about storms clearing the way for new beginnings." I nodded. "It's true. Without the hurricane, I might never have called you, never found my way back to you. Or to yourself," he added. "I've watched you this past year, Elaine. You've blossomed, found your strength, your purpose." "I had help," I said, leaning against his shoulder. "You had support," he corrected. "The strength was always there." We stood in comfortable silence, watching the gulls circle against the darkening sky. So much had changed since that desperate night in the, park gazebo. I'd lost a house but gained a home, in Jonathan's arms, in my renewed relationship with Ryan, in my work with the community. "Where should we live after we're married?" I asked suddenly. "Your place? Mine? Something new?" Jonathan considered the question. "I was thinking about that. What would you say to building something here? Not exactly where your old house was, somewhere less vulnerable to flooding. But in Galveston?" "Really? You'd leave River Oaks? For you?" "In a heartbeat." He turned to face me. "Besides, I can work from anywhere. And this place, it's special. It's where we began." I thought about his suggestion. A new home in my old community. A way to honor the past while embracing the future. "I'd like that," I said. "Very much." Later that night, as we drove back to Houston, I texted Ryan to thank him for his support at the event. His response brought tears to my eyes. "You deserve all this happiness, Mom. I'm sorry it took a hurricane for me to see your true worth. Jonathan is a lucky man. And so am I, to have you as my mother. Love you." I showed the message to Jonathan. "He's right," Jonathan said simply. "About your worth, not my luck." My eyes were always open. As the lights of the city appeared in the distance, I leaned my head against his shoulder, feeling a contentment I'd never imagined possible a year ago. The hurricane had taken everything I owned, but given me everything I needed. A second chance at love, a renewed relationship with my son, and most importantly, the discovery of my own resilience. "The storm's redemption," I murmured. "What's that?" Jonathan asked. "Nothing," I said, smiling to myself. "Just grateful for unexpected blessings." The car continued northward, carrying us home. Not to a house or an apartment, but to the space we'd created together. A space where love, respect, and dignity were the foundations stronger than any storm could wash away. True wealth, I had learned, wasn't measured in possessions or property. It was calculated in moments of connection, in being valued for who you truly are, in finding the courage to begin again after devastation. Sometimes the storms that destroy everything are the very ones that bring back what you thought was lost forever.